Hey everybody, welcome back to Bookish Daddy. Today we are going to be doing 25 for 25 and going over the 25 books that I want to read during this year. Uh, I guess you could call this my yearly TBR. These are books that I've been wanting to read for some time, or books that just the ones I want to read the most this year. I thought this would be difficult to come up with 25, but it's actually quite the opposite. I had a hard time narrowing it down to 25. There's a lot of books on my TBR and a lot on my shelves that have been there a long time that I want to knock off my TBR. So this will be that video. Look, I want to thank you all so much for watching my content and sharing it and reaching out. And you've all been just the best community ever. And I am very grateful. If you're enjoying the content, please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And yeah, continue to watch. So let's get into this. The first book is Kings of the Wild. It is by Nicholas Eames. And that's the book. So this is a book that's been on my shelves for a while. It is a Viking, I'm pretty sure it's a Viking comedy. I've been told there's lots of comedic elements to this. It is a bunch of Viking warriors who were like the best of the best, and they're retired. Now they have kids, beer bellies, and all they do is drink, be adults, dads, and they're called back into the line of duty, and they all team up for one last hoorah. And it's supposed to be funny and violent and just a gritty Viking tale about these retired dads and granddads that have to go to war one last time. The next book is Fantasma by Kaylee Smith, and this is that book. So from what I gather, this is almost a Caraval retelling, but a more adult. And I say retelling because I'm pretty sure this came out after all the Caraval books. This is about a young lady named Ophelia discovers that her mother was murdered, and she's inherited the family's magic and debt, and something goes wrong with her sister, and in order to save her, she enters this competition in a cursed manor where the winner gets to make a single wish, but not many people make it out alive. And that is what this is about. It sounded fun. I loved Caraval, and that is why it's on the list. The next book is To Kill a Shadow by Catherine Quinn. This is one of those, again, that's been on the TBR for quite some time. I just bought the second book, I believe. Second or third book. I think I've got, second book. It says, in a world of darkness, become the nightmare. Yeah, so this is about Jude Maddox. He's like the Knight of Death in this realm. And he says Jude knows nothing of love or even light. He knows only his grim duty as the Hand of Death, to lead knights of the Eternal Star into a land filled with nightmares. It's only when he sees her, a young woman with wild amber eyes who's as fierce, defiant, and swift as the shadow beasts themselves, that he feels the warmth of life in his blood. I mean, that's all I need to say for that. It sounds dark. It's a romantasy, and the books are beautiful. The second one's just as pretty as this. This book, The Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. If you watched me all year, you saw that I've brought this up a ton. It is a book that I don't know why. It's been on my TBR forever, and it just keeps falling by the sidelines for one reason or another. And that's the main reason this is on there, is because it is a book I have been wanting to read for a long time and haven't got around to reading it. So this is going to be the year I'm going to try my hardest to get to it and knock it off the TBR. Ooh, the next one. Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Mayer. This is one that all of you, including my wife, have been wanting me to read and vlog. It is literally what it sounds like. It is a villain's assistant who starts falling in love with him. It's supposed to be funny, and from what I'm told, this is a phenomenal read. It's fun, it's cute, and those are all the things I look for in a book. So this one had to be on the list. I'm for sure going to read it this year. The next book is Dating and Dragons by Christy Boyce. This one sounds so cute. So this is about a girl who goes to a new school, and in order to make friends, she tries to put together a D&D campaign. And that's all I needed to know about this book to know I was going to read it this year. It's short. It's about D&D, and it's supposed to be a YA romance. Those are all things I look for in a book, and so that's why this is on the list. The next one is the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I thought it said Olive Blake for a second. I was confused. So this is an academia book, and it is supposed to be a wizard academia where they select, I think it's the 6 most brilliant wizards, and they all get to go into this very exclusive school and compete to become the best wizards that they can be. They're supposed to be devious and talented, and they're all flawed in their own ways. Dude, I am obsessed with academia books right now, and wizards and mages and stuff like that are always like my favorite class. One of my favorite classes in D&D and things like that. So I cannot wait to read this book. The next book is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is my wife's favorite book series, probably ever. It is about her favorite character from the Caraval series, which would be Jax. And I am told that is all I am allowed to know about these books. She wants me to read these. I want to read them because I loved Caraval, and this year I am going to read this trilogy. A lot of you have reached out after I read Caraval and told me that I really need to read these, and so I'm for sure going to read these this year. Next is another one of my wife's favorite books, and that is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And this is the pretty version of it. So this is a cozy fantasy about an orc that opens a coffee shop. I've talked about this a ton. Again, it's another book. I don't know how it keeps falling onto the next TBR. This year is for sure getting read. Matter of fact, right now I am finishing up a couple books, and this is what I am planning to read as a palate cleanser, I believe. So hopefully within the next couple weeks, this will be read. Oh, next one. I got this one for Christmas. It is Anathema by Carrie Lake, and it has a beautiful cover. All I know about this is that it is just like One Dark Window vibes and Two Twisted Crowns, but from what I'm told, it arguably is better. There are a lot of people out there that are saying this is like even better, more dark. It's about this young lady that gets cast out into a like haunted forest or forbidden forest, and her trying to survive out there on her own. It's supposed to be really, really dark. Uh, yeah, that's all I know about this one, but I know I'm for sure going to read it because One Dark Window, as you saw in my last video, made it into my top 3 books of the year, and so I'm going to have to read this one. Next is Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruscio, and this is the Sun Eater series. I don't need to say much about this. It's a space opera, and the internet has been blowing up about this year. A lot of the big name booktubers that I follow have been reading this and praising this book. They all have it in their top 10, some in their top 5, and I have heard nothing but amazing things. I haven't had a single friend or booktuber that I watch talk negative about this book. So yeah, I'm super excited to get this read. Next is Immortal Dark by Tigist Germa. That's a cool name. So this one says, "Am I scaring you?" His voice rumbled like mountain rocks. "Do you want to leave?" The muscles of his shoulders tensed as if he was preparing for another blow. He was mistaken her accelerated heart rate for fear. She lifted her lashes to him and rested her hands over his. So this is obviously a vampire academia book with beautiful sprayed edges. Again, I'm into the academia books. I love vampire books, and this is supposed to be dark academia. So I can't wait to read this. I think this was a birthday present this year. This one made the list. It's Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. So earlier in the year, I read Malice, which was good for the first book in one of John Gwynne's first series. I gave it 4 stars. I have not continued that series, but I've been told it's not necessary to read this series. And The Shadow of the Gods is supposed to be light years better than the other series. This one is about the Norse gods, I believe. From master storyteller John Gwynne comes a Norse-inspired epic in blood and vengeance. So it's about this dude fighting all the Norse gods. I've heard that it is really, really like graphic, gory, just straight up Norse mythology, and I am excited to read it. And I kind of want to read this more than the Malice series, so I think I'm going to jump into it this year. The next one has been blowing up this year. It's Quicksilver by Callie Hart, and that is the cover I'm sure most of you have seen. This is a thick book. It says the devil is in the details. I do not know much about this. I know it's about Fae. I know it is about a young lady in the desert that like steps through a portal into a winter wonderland that is ran by these Fae, and she steps into the middle of a huge war, and she's trying to decide what side she's on, and ends up running into what I'm assuming is this tatted up fairy, and he is supposed to be the deadliest Fae warrior, and so she follows him around the realm. That's all I know about this. What I do know is that a lot of you on everything, Bookstagram, BookTube, everybody's been blowing up about this book. So I want to read it, see what it's all about, see if it lives up to the hype. And yeah, so that's why this made the list. The next book is Bloodguard by C.C. Robson. I hope I pronounced that name right. This is a good old-fashioned Gladiator book. Gladiator is probably arguably, it's in top 5 favorite movies of all time. I only say top 5 because Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, The Matrix, The Hobbit, stuff like that, I put above it. But standalone movie at the time I was watching it, the second one wasn't out. Gladiator was one of my favorite films ever, and this just looks like a good old-fashioned gladiator fight to the death. It says there's thousands of people enter this tournament to try and gain their freedom, and only one can survive it, just like any gladiator situation. Dude, I'm excited about it. I love gladiators. Next is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I have talked about this quite a few times over the past few weeks. All I know about this is it is a young lady in ancient Eastern Asia, I think Eastern, dealing with the Second Empire. What is it? Basically, it's a time when women in Eastern Asia are looked down upon. She finds out that she has a dormant power, and it's kind of like what she would do during that era if she was able to like just destroy anyone who gave her crap. I've heard it's very sad, very dark, and very graphic, but I am looking forward to reading this. This book, The City of Dusk by Tara Sim, I don't know a whole lot about, but it is probably the longest lasting book on my TBR. It's been, 2 years since I added it to my TBR. It says, for every realm there is a god, for every god there is an heir, and for every heir there is a price. Enter a world of bone and shadow magic, vengeful gods, and defiant chosen ones in the City of Dusk. It sounded awesome. It's got like slight deviled edges, the velvety dark cover, it's really floppy, and the back sounded cool. I want to read this year because it is like the longest standing book on my TBR, and I just want to get it off of there and see if it's as good as I thought it would be. The rest of these books are on my phone because I don't own them yet, but we'll go over them. I'll throw up a picture here or here, whichever looks better. I don't guess it matters. The first one is Onyx Storm I'll be going to the midnight release, filming that, and hopefully vlogging this entire read. I'm going to try and knock it out like fast in the year. So that's coming up in a couple weeks. Next is The Sword of Kaigen. This has been on my TBR forever, but the Barnes & Noble local to us has been out of the book. It hasn't been stocked. I don't like ordering books online because if the spines are damaged or the pages are bent, I don't want it. So I typically go in person to buy books, and this one is just never there. So that is why it's still on the list. I have heard phenomenal things. This is another one of those books that, just like Empire of Silence, all my favorite booktubers have this in their top 10, and I have heard it is just so good. The next book is Voyage of the Damned. This book, if I remember right, it is a crew of some of the most powerful like wizards and people are being shipped from one realm to another to go help this empire. And halfway across the sea, someone dies on the boat. So they stop and they're trying to figure out who did it. And it's all these like powerful people stuck on this boat together in an enchanted sea with sea monsters. And dude, the cover's beautiful too. I'll throw it up here. Next is Dungeon Crawler Carl. I just started this book. I got to like chapter 10 or 11 of the audiobook, and it was so phenomenal. I wanted to listen to it with my wife, so I restarted it, and we're on chapter like 2 or 3 now. Dude, I haven't read the physical copy, but the audiobook, Jeff Hayes crushes the voices. It's immersive and fun, and this is a book some of you have reached out over the last year wondering like what books your husbands should read to get into reading. I think this one might be it. So it is aliens have planted us here and on a ton of other planets. And then once we have reached a certain point to where we've learned how to farm all the resources of that planet, these aliens come, kill everybody except for like 10 million people, and then put them into a dungeon where they have to fight through levels. And the levels get harder, but it's like a video game. Like you level up. At certain levels, you can like change your race, change your skill tree, and it's freaking funny too. So the announcers in it, like as he like kills goblins and stuff, it'll say like achievement unlocked and say some crazy nonsense. It is fun. It's violent. It's a super cool read and a very cool premise. Yeah, if your husbands are looking for a book to read, or some of you girls that like video games and stuff like that, I think you should highly recommend the audiobook. Next is Brood in Magic. So this is the second book to Forged by Magic, which is in my top 10 for the year, and I obviously want to read it. There is a side character in the first book who I loved, one of my favorite characters in the book. This follows her and her romance story. The next book is Guard in the Garden. This is by an indie author. I'll throw up his name down here. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But he's a veteran, and the book is about a veteran dwarf and him dealing with PTSD. He gets injured in his last big battle or war, and he has to settle down, and he doesn't like the sound of it, but they put him in this like not a brewery, a bakery, and he starts treating it like it's a battlefield, like getting the orders out on time and like finding new challenges in the kitchen to like tackle, and basically his struggles with getting out of war and having to become a civilian. And it just sounded super cute. It's supposed to be cozy, and I thought it would be perfect. I really want to read this book. Next is Billy Summers by Stephen King. I have never read a Stephen King book, and I wanted this to be my first read. So this says it is about a killer for hire, the best in the business. He is an Iraq war veteran and Houdini when it comes to vanishing after killing someone. but he only kills targets once he's clarified that they, or verified that they are bad guys and truly evil people. He wants to get out of the business, but needs one last hit before he retires. And it says in the little description, what could possibly go wrong, and then it says, how about everything? And then I guess his whole world just falls apart after this last hit. And the last book on the list is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I have never read any of her work, but the ratings on this were insane. It's like 1,000,000, 4.5 star reviews on Goodreads. It is a historical fiction about a former POW Vietnam vet who loses his job and uproots his family and moves to Alaska, where they kind of like pay you if you're willing to live in these harsh environments, and his struggles and his family's struggles with living in this part of Alaska. Everyone says it's phenomenal. I was a little nervous about it, but I really want to read it to see what it's about. And I don't really read historical fictions, so I thought this would be a good like first read because everyone else has rated it so high. I thought it would be a good one. That does it for my 25 for the year. That being said, I may not read all of these, but I'm going to try my best to. These are at the like top of the list. You all know if I walk by a book in Barnes and Noble and it looks amazing, I might grab it and read it first. So we'll see how it goes. But the plan right now is to read these 25 books. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have a great week and stay safe out there, man. The West Coast is full of flames. The East Coast is just full of ice. I hope you're all being safe. I know a bunch of you live on the West Coast. We're sending prayers your way, and I hope you're all staying safe, evacuating if you need to, and I really, really hope that all of you are okay.